In this tutorial, I will show you how I recreated this artwork in Blender. The original composition is from this photographer and 3D artist. You can find the link to his YouTube channel and Instagram profile in the description. Recreating artworks is the best way to learn and progress. This is the reason why I tried to recreate this work and tried to discover the settings used by this artist, which by the way also use Blender to create this artwork. If I can figure out the lighting setup from this artwork, I can improve my next works. Lighting is the most important part and defines how the render will look. We can replace 3D models with anything, but if we leave the lighting, the photo will still look pleasing to the eye. But let's start with the house. We will talk about lighting later. Last year I created this rendering and modeled this cabin step by step. You can find the tutorial on Skillshare in the link below. Skillshare is sponsor of this video, but more about that later. I tried to use it in the scene, but it didn't fit as I wanted. I decided to model the house the same or similar to the reference one. I first created the basic shape of the house following the reference. After that, I continued to add details such as doors, windows, fence, tiles, broken glass, etc. You can see what the modeling process looks like in this speed up process, which lasts about another minute and a half. I created several planes that I placed all over the front of the house that is visible in the camera. After that, I add some imperfections. Given that it's an abandoned house, it is not a problem if some of planks is missing or out of place. The entire process of modeling the house can be found in the step-by-step tutorial in the link in the description, as well as the creation of the entire scene lasting 2.5 hours. With a subscription on Patreon or by clicking on YouTube Join, you can unlock the another 20 tutorial listing about 70 hours, as well as project files. I also modeled the width earlier for this render, so I decided to use the same models. I used a particle system to place width on the ground. Before we continue with the tutorial, let me introduce you to Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes and members who come together to find inspiration and take the next step in their creative journey. Whether you want to learn Blender or learn how to start your own creative business, Skillshare has classes to take you from beginner to pro alongside a supportive community. I have personally been using Skillshare for 2 years now, and I can say that I have found some of the best Blender tutorials there. I'm also a teacher on Skillshare, so you can find some of my tutorials. I would recommend the cinematic tutorial by Kaivan Shaban, where I found a lot of valuable informations. And of course my tutorials. Skillshare has classes on a wide variety of topics, including illustration, graphic design, photography, writing, animation, music, film and video, and much more. Right now, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will get a 1 month free trial on Skillshare. Let's now back to the tutorial. Trees and shrubs are from the Botanic add-on. If I am not mistaken, I think the same tree model was used in the render I am recreating. The character is a model I found on Blender Market. I just added a hat to it. The pose is not changeable, but this one is okay for me. In the step-by-step tutorial, I use a free model from Sketchfab, which I changed the pose in Mixam. I placed the camera 60 meters away from the house and a focal length of even 120 mm to give the impression that someone is filming from a big distance. I got a similar impression from the reference photo, so I think it is about similar settings. I also set the depth of field to 4. First, I set the word light completely to black because I want to create light through volumetric. I created a volumetric cube with these values. Emission strength with a low value is important to enhance the fog effect. We can see that we have a lot of light in the background, but not in front, because I can see that the roof of the house is almost completely black. We can get a similar effect if we place a very strong point lamp in the background, which can represent the moon. But you can always see the outline of the light. Even if we increase the radius, it becomes a little softer, but not too much. That's why I turned to another solution. If we place the image of the sky in the background and plug it into emission and emission strength, the image will emit light. The amount of the light it will emit depends on the emission strength, which we can control with the math node set to multiply. By changing the texture we can get interesting results, but if we want to achieve the fog look, we shouldn't see a lot of clouds. The fog is just blurry, that's why I choose this photo. But to get a little more detail, I added some cloud texture to this smooth image. I also added a volumetric cube to the bottom to increase the fog effect, but I didn't get much. I just got a little darker instead of blur that fog should look like. I tried several variations, but it didn't work, so I turned to post-processing. For post-processing, I used After Effects first time, but for step-by-step tutorial, I decided to do whole process in Blender Compositor. Since the post-processing part is a bit long, I decided to make a separate video about it. Subscribe and click bell to get notified in a few days. Of the things I made in After Effects, I would highlight the number of fog overlays that I controlled the position in 3D space with the mist path that I got in Blender. I got the orange glow effect by creating orange solid, to which I added a mask with a larger feather. I placed effect behind the main with the mist path. I improved the background sky texture in the same way. This time I used a blue solid, gradient radial ramp and mist path. But we will create all this in Blender Compositor in the next video. This is the final result where I try to recreate the atmosphere from the reference as accurately as possible. This is the result where I added a little more details to my liking. If you like the result and if you learned something new, click like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. In some of my videos before, I have recreated works from film or other people's renders, and I can say that is the best way to progress and learn in Blender. Instead of taking the easy way out and using the same technique over and over and doing similar renders, recreating constantly requires the problem solving and finding the way to get some detail from the reference that I haven't done before. In this attempt, I found a way to improve the fog scene. For example, in this reference image we can see detail where the fog is thick on the ground and fades upwards, which elevates this render and makes scenes in the real world. Noticing that detail on the reference, I found a way to create it using a blurred render with a mask that has a gradient from bottom to top. This is just one of many details I noticed on this reference that I can use next time. This is all for this video. See you in the second part in a few days.